Here we go. Hello. I see you, John Kim. There's some people you can start to count on. Checking in from work. Let's get it. Good afternoon. I Talk Sports 24. What's good? And sports. Hello. Ma Worthy joined. User 22. Like, this is what's crazy. Is we already at this point where people's usernames are in the trillions? That's the growth. Let's go. So today, day 10, December 10th, 12/10. Man, we're already 10 days into a financial challenge. How are we going to end the year? Flash forward to 12/31. That will be the completion of the 30-day challenge, and we will also be giving out the checklist of how you can end the year positive, strong financially. What are you supposed to be getting taken care of though? There. Third of the month already gone by. Dang. It's crazy. If we don't capture this, there's two ways to look at it. I'm up here, Seattle, Pacific Northwest. It's dark right about now. You could sit, you can squander, you can sit in the depths of it, or you can flip your mindset. Or you can begin to look at, what am I going to use and do during December? What is that going to be for me? So I challenge you, don't doom and gloom. It's December, school, work, whatever it is. Begin to wake up every day. Repeat something to yourself. Mission you're on, something that your soul needs, just plant little seeds in your mind. Here's a quote I heard today. Have to share it because it's just a crazy quote. The dead outnumber the living 14-1, and yet we ignore the experiences and the perils of mankind. That's deep, man. That's deep. The dead outnumber the living 14-1. It's probably bigger than that by now. Snap your fingers and there's another 1,000 people born in the world. So that is truth. What can we learn from history? What can we press upon? Today, we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson around the banking industry. I think one of the fundamental aspects of financial empowerment, financial literacy, is getting your accounts in order. Beginning with those base fundamentals, those two fundamental ones we're going to talk about tomorrow. But today, we're going to understand why a bank is going to become your first teammate. One of the questions we've answered is, why do I care about money? We've answered, how does money create money? We've answered, what can I do to control my money? Money buckets was yesterday. I hope one of you began to implement that. Pay yourself first. I made $1, I saved a dime. Today, we enter chapter 4 of the Money Vehicle Challenge. We start to ask ourselves, where are we going to put this money that we are earning, this money that we are working for, and this money that we now have? So as we enter this chapter, remember, the dead outweigh the living 14-1. What can we learn from them? So we're going to go on a little bit of a history lesson, but as you know, I like to open it up the floor at the beginning, let people jump in, give it 2 or 3 minutes. Some interesting stuff happening in the world. You have Duke canceling games, losing games. You got just a bunch of little things popping up. What is it out there? What interests you? I mentioned yesterday that one of the thoughts I love to share with NFL players is we get dangerous money. Why is it dangerous? It's because everybody looks at you and thinks you're rich, you're wealthy, you got it. And it's dangerous because that starts to seep in. Mike Merck, that's a write it down kind of quote. That is absolutely a write it down. I had to write it down. It's at the top of my page. It's a pretty good quote. What can we learn from history? Let's go on a history lesson real quick because I want you to be able to understand the evolution of banking. So as we go back to all the way to 1609, Weasel Bank. If any of you are Frozen fans, I think that's what they were playing on, is Weaselman in Amsterdam. They were the first bank to actually start to allow debits and credits. They were the first bank to say, hey, you don't have to have the physical coins here. You have an account, we will start to trust you. History repeats itself. If you don't learn, you're doomed. History, this is, and John Kim, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to edit your quote because this is another one that I love. History does not repeat itself. Mankind, womankind repeat itself. History is in the past, but yes, you are absolutely right. The lessons, the principles, the things we can take away from them, those do repeat themselves. Those are what we can gain and learn. So 1609 in Amsterdam was the first bank that said, you're okay, I trust you, you got a debit, you got a credit, you have an account, facts. Now we fast forward a few years in 1656, the Swedish open up Riksbank. I don't know how to say it in Swedish, but it was the first lane bank, and they did something that was super interesting. This is something that, again, I'm going to geek out for a second, but they created and invented something called fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking in 1656 in Sweden. This industry, this concept, this beginning changed the evolution of money. It changed the banking industry. It changed modern day how we look at this thing, because here's what they did. Fractional reserve banking began to say, hey, Majdanaha came into my bank and says, hey, I want to deposit $100. Fractional reserve banking. So what Amsterdam was doing, Wisselbank was saying, if you put in $100, I got $100 back here. There's always going to be 100% of my deposits back here. I got to have that on reserve. In Riksbank in Sweden, they began to say, I don't need all 100% back there. You gave me $100. You're good. Get out of here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a fraction of that, and I'm going to reserve it. I'm going to hold that in my bank. The rest of it, I get to go loan out. This was the invention of fractional banking. This was the beginning of banks finding a way to profit off of your money. A lot of people don't like banks. They don't trust them. They don't do this. They don't do that. Banks make money on your money. They take the compound interest idea, prevents bank runs. Yes, reserves prevent bank runs. Great point out, John Kim. But as we look at this, I want you to understand this relationship where a bank, let's see, 1656, 400 years ago, a bank said, I think I can make money off of the deposits. I am going to take do you think SPOCs will be a bubble? Are all of these companies really better off going public? So this is an interesting, I don't want to segue here because Ost1 asked an interesting question. So SPOCs are a phantom public company that then goes and acquires private companies. So why the Boston Red Sox might be going public here soon is because their parent company is going to be bought by a SPOC. So are they a bubble? No, they're not a bubble. It is just a new form to get away from IPOs. Why people don't like IPOs is because you have to go and pitch and sell hedge funds or investment banks or raise capital in that regard. They want to have a new interpretation of how to get that public access, how to get that public funding. So SPOCs are the newest evolution of that. There is also direct, away from initial public offerings, there's a direct way to get to the market now that is a newer model that people are using. So no, I think SPOCs are a very interesting facet of the market. And I think, very wise people are seeing the conglomerateness that we are a part of. You look at Google, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Coca-Cola. They no longer are just single companies. They are conglomerates of hundreds of thousands of companies. So really all SPOC is saying, Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway started as like a commercial textile company or some nonsense like that. It isn't that anymore. What it is interesting is they're just saying, well, let's skip the initial company. The initial company that starts this thing, let's just forget about that. Let's go straight to the idea that we want to have 4 or 5 different companies, 4 or 5 different industries. Can we do that and go directly to it? So that is what a SPOC is. And no, I don't think it's a bubble. I think they're going to be around. The valuations are so high on them. Let them come down first, but depends on company. Mike Merck, I'm not going to disagree with that. Valuations are extremely high. Cool take. Thanks for your perspective. That's what we're here to do. Keep the questions coming. I appreciate it. So yes, and it's obviously it's one by one. There's not a single SPOC. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of them as people get comfortable with them. No different than Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin an interesting facet and feature? Sure. Is the valuation absurd? Nah, it depends on the day or the week or the month. But the idea of them representing the entire cryptocurrency industry, just like one single SPOC representing the entire industry, you're just going to continue to see it grow. And as it gets more socially acceptable, I don't think Bitcoin is the answer, but cryptocurrencies are going to be a part of the future, not the part of the past. SPOCs are a part of the future, not just the past. So great question. Good little segue there. But as I look at this idea, fractional reserve banking. So when a bank finally, did you have a pre-game routine you did before every game? Mike, 32, yee, 32. Yes, I did. I'll give you pre-game routine here in a second. Let me get banking wrapped because we want to, some people like the finance, some people like the football. That's what's fun is we go back and forth. So why I want to finish this train of thought, because fractional reserve banking said, of these $100 in my reserve, which is what as a bank before 1656, this was my asset. My asset was I have $1,000 in my bank. That's my asset. When I began fractional reserve banking, net worth statement, assets minus liabilities, it flipped what that bank reserve meant to me. Now that bank reserve went from my asset, it transitioned to my liability. Why? Because my asset was now making money go back out the door in those loans. That was what the interesting concept here is. This idea, this transition, this change in our banking system took an asset and made it a liability and started to look for the bank for, where's my 20? You get it about 5 more minutes. You can give it 7 more minutes. You can answer that question. But as you look at this is the evolution of the banking industry, and this is an important one. So as person one goes and deposits their money into a bank, they need to keep 10%. That means $90 of that $100, the bank turns around and loans out to person two. Person two then takes that $90, and as they're thinking about what to spend it on, they go put it into bank two. Bank two takes the $90 and says 10%. I'm going to put $9 back in my bank, and I'm going to loan out 81, and so on and so on, as you see this fractional reserve banking. And this is also why you look at the money system today. There is exponentially more money created than there was why we had to get off the gold standard, is because you can create money through this reserve system and through the trust of going into banks and believing that there won't be a bank run. John Kim mentioned earlier about a bank run, which is if person, you trickle down, person one, $100, person two, $90, person three, 81, person four, 73. As the person one comes back and says, hey, I want my $100 back. If you can't give them that $100 from your reserve, you now have to call in loans. And that is when people get very risky about banks. So QC, that's me. You get your 20s. Come out. I got to answer the question here in a moment. Would fractional reserve banking made money similar to a compound account as an MPI perform? Cody Murphy. So the MPI is interesting because it's basically an insurance product. So I don't love talking about them. What I will say is the idea of fractional reserve banking is the idea we talked about back in chapter 2, where we are making money. Banks are making money, their employee. Banks are making money go to work for them and creating that interest. So in that regard, yes, fractional reserve banking could technically be the beginning of compound interest. where you are going to be charged on loans and it's going to compound over time. When everyone was withdrawing money from banks when stock market crashed in 1929. So here's an interesting fact about the stock market crash of 1929. Only about 2% of only about 2% of Americans were actually invested in the stock market. So why is that crazy? Well, the stock market crashed. Only 2 to 3% of Americans lost money in the market. So why was there a depression? Well, because as we see from this fall, the banking industry got kind of shaken. We did not have the reserves. So then when the wealthy started to go pull money out of the bank, it was a trickle down effect. But that is what is interesting is people did not lose money in the stock market crash, people being most people. They lost money when there was a bank run and we started to look at then leading to unemployment. So that is why we have regulations now. That is why we have something called the FDIC, which we're about to talk about. And this is how all these dominoes really line up. And you see one tip over and start to stream down the rest. So as we look at banks today, let me answer that question. What was my pregame routine? Pregame routine. One, I ate the same thing every week at the same time. So that was what was cool about being in the NFL is you started to look at this clock and know exactly what time you could get to the stadium, exactly what time things were kicking off, exactly boom, boom, boom. It became methodical. You became a professional at it. And so, yes, when I got to the stadium, I would go take care of some business. Got to get that out of the way. But then as I would go and I would change, I actually remember my first game, like active playing, starting. I went out and I was so excited that I changed into like some like just t-shirt and shorts way before the game because you get to go out on the field. And I walked out in tennis shoes and like a 10-year veteran, one of our centers comes up to me and goes, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm going to go, get warmed up. I'm going to go like break a sweat and do all the things." He's like, "Jed, you're supposed to test out your cleats. Like that's the reason we're out here is to like get our footing and feel the field. Do we need to change cleats? Do we need deeper cleats? All that." You're an idiot. Go back in there, put your cleats on. So I remember that very vividly. But one of my pregame routines was and I'm not going to go biblical or religious here for very long, but there's a story in the Bible around the walls of Jericho. And people would circle the walls of Jericho 7 times, singing and yelling, and finally the walls came crashing down. I took that thought and I said, okay, I'm going to go, and I did 2 full laps around the field every time. And I would end on our 50-yard line. I would walk straight down the 50-yard line, and I would turn, and I would look at the opponent's side of the field. And I would stare at them, and I put out a post around my eyes. I like talking with my eyes. I would stare at them, but in my mind, I would say, "I'm better than you. I'm tougher than you. I'm going to beat you today." And I would repeat those words as I would stare at their linebackers, as their defensive linemen, as the guys I was going to go compete against. Then to end it, I'd turn around, I'd look at my teammates, give them a nod of love, and I'd look up to the sky, and I would make peace with my maker that I might not walk off the field that day. And everybody thought that was really interesting. All my teammates knew I would do this each and every game. You'd look up and you would actually accept the idea that you might not walk off the field. And that was just something that I had to do. It was something that was part of my pregame, part of my mentality, my mindset. I had to accept that notion, accept that idea. So that was a part of, and pregame, I could walk through the entire thing. I actually have it in my journals. But so as we look at this, I want you to look at who was the hardest person you ever had to block. So 4 advantages to the bank. I'll come back to hardest person I ever had to block. Who's that? Mamba always. Respect. Grew up Lakers fan, still a Lakers fan. And what's cool is my man at Grit Player Services helping me with my branding. They just sent me some videos from back when I was playing. And I'm going to send those out. Maybe I'll send those out tonight. But it was the first game that I really made the NFL. It was a preseason game against the Texans. And on one drive, I went from no respect to very much respect. And I can have my offensive line coach came up to me after that drive and said, "You just made the team, son. Congratulations." If you are answering questions, does the income tax affect where players sign? Yes, it does. Great question. And sports. So the income tax, and I mentioned this yesterday, why it's interesting the Niners are playing in Arizona. So NFL players pay income tax in each state and city. Obviously, they pay the federal income tax. But if you are domiciled or you live in a state, you can sign your signing bonus in that state and declare that state income there. Why this is interesting is because it never really impacted me all that much. I was not a really big name player, but the big name contract guys, they live in Texas, they live in Arizona, they live in Washington, where there is lower or no state income tax. So I remember very vividly, just blanked on his name, Tony Romo. Tony Romo signed one of his big deals in Dallas, Texas, and he saved, because Texas does not have a state income, he saved a ton of money on their income tax. Florida, a lot of guys live in Florida, no state income tax. So as you look at that, that is a big impact on how much money you make. If you play against and yourself play in a city and a state that have high income taxes, that is going to really impact how much money you are going to make that season. Guys in New York and California make 10% less than guys in Washington and Florida. For a high schooler, which is the best credit debit card to get? Also, at what age should one start investing? Great question. So those are two timelines I would recommend starting today, both the investing and the credit history side. So for a high schooler, you could go get what's called a secured credit card. That is, with your family, your parents, you put an X number of dollars into a bank, and that security acts as your new credit card. It begins your credit history and your credit score. That's why it's so powerful. So I would look at a secured credit card. There is a website called bankrate.com. Bankrate.com that will show you secured. It will also show you traditional credit cards. But if I'm a high schooler, I'm either opening a secured credit card or I am becoming an authorized user on my parents' credit card. Now, you have to get them to sign off on that, but that can also start your credit score and credit history, which is extremely important. When should you start investing? Yesterday or today. Better yesterday than today, but if not today, then as soon as possible. That's what we're going to talk about in a few chapters, is what to go buy as a young professional, as a young investor. Am I going to give you the hot stock tips to make you a mega millionaire? Am I going to give you that next stock that's going to go boom? No. Why? Because I don't believe in day trading. I think active investing is a loser's game. If you understand history, talking about history, if you understand the investment world, you realize you don't need to do that. If you're a young investor, you don't need to day trade. You need to use time in the market. If you look at the best return on investment of the last decade, it was Netflix. Netflix returned over 4,000%, not to people who bought and sold it, to the people who just wrote it out. That is a lesson. So when to start investing? Today. You can do that through Acorns. You can do that through a lot of technology today. But I would go and buy a low-fee, globally diversified index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. I think Amari Cooper got offered more by Washington, but Dallas offered a little less. And if you look at the difference between DC, or where are they probably housed? They're probably housed in Virginia. Virginia state income, that's going to play into it. It doesn't make your decision, but it definitely plays into your decision. Wanted to play with Dak. Amari wanted to play with Dak. Not a bad idea. The Dak story coming out this offseason, I'd be curious of what you guys think of. Hey, Nicholas, brother, that's a great question. So appreciate it. So are players happy when they play an away game in states like Texas? I mean, not many players, more and more, the ones I get to teach understand it, but not many players are that attuned to how the progressive income tax or their taxes are actually going to unfold. I would love the veterans. Yes, veterans get it. Veterans understand it. But DC has the highest per capita income tax in the U.S. We pay the highest rate of federal taxes. That's per capita. It's because there's not that many people there. But that's an interesting fact. It's true. DC's crazy, and it's crazy expensive. But I believe right now California has the highest state income tax, but it's progressive. So the center, Joe Staley on the Niners, who makes $87 million a year, he's going to venture into that state income. Would you max out your Roth IRA or 457 deferred comp if you were in California? So 457 means you work for the government. So I don't work for the government, so I wouldn't get that. I'd get a 401k. I, being a young professional, would recommend going into a Roth account. I'm a big believer in Roths. We're going to get to Roths here in Chapter 10 of Money Vehicle, but Roths are a major advantage because you being 16, 20, 26, you'll never have to pay taxes on those dollars again. And believe me, taxes are going to go up. Always take at least the company match percentage in a 401k. So many kids pass that up. Make it work. No truer words are going to be said. Roth, Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. No better investment in the world than a company's free money match. Get that free money. User numbers, I don't know. But, oh, snap, what's going on here? Somehow I'm sending a message. All right, get out of here. All right, good call on the 401k employer match. Not the first question, but we will talk later on about what that employer match means. People say 50% of the first 3% and 100% of the next. We'll talk about all that. Washington players live in Virginia. So there you go there. Good call, and sports. Can you put babysitting money in a Roth IRA? How do I start that? 100%. Sloan, love this question. Excellent question. Anytime you have income, you are allowed to open a Roth account. I have income, I can open a Roth account. If I'm under 18, I might need my parents because I'm not, but you have income, whether it's babysitting, lifeguarding, waitering, I don't give a damn. One, respect your hustle. Fully respect your hustle. Two, you go to any company, Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade. I'm sure you can go on Personal Capital. You can go on, I don't know if Robinhood does Roth accounts. I should look into that. I don't know if Robinhood does. But traditional big brokerage houses will allow you to open up with a social security number and proof of your income. So if you can declare that you made money, you can open up a Roth account, and then you just have to decide what to invest in. I would recommend an index called VT. It's an index fund at Vanguard, owns every publicly traded company in the world. Would be a great start. Great start for you. Sloan, you're my guest winner of the day. If you would like access to the Money Vehicle course, based on that question alone, I want to just give you the course. So I'll give that to you. You let me know. I'm going to write that down. That was a great question, Sloan. Sloan Reigns. And we got our winner. All right, let's get the winner of the day because we're coming up on 30. Thank you for all of that. All that you do, you're the GOAT for helping people become financially literate. Man, Chris Caswell, 3. You Chris Caswell, number 1. Don't let anybody fool you there. Appreciate that. This is what I want to do, man. This is, I'm doing all right. Company's doing well, football, all that stuff. But if I can empower people, my mission in life, I said, repeat your mission, empower 1 million people to use money. What is our number one trackable thing? I want to open 1 million Roth accounts. Why? Because if we open 1 million Roth accounts here in the United States, we are showing the world, showing ourselves and showing our parents or friends or family, everybody, that we understand money, we have a strategy for our money, and we are being efficient. You want some tax efficiencies? Stop paying so much taxes. That is what Roths do. So really, Chris, made my day. Appreciate that. 64, thank you. Love it, 64 Chevy. This all sounds like a foreign language. Gab 3J. Money was a foreign language to me too. Don't let this all fool you. This is 10 years of learning about this subject. But why I wrote my book, why I have my course, and I know you guys got a lot of people on courses on TikTok. The only reason I'm different than all of them is I get to put a little R behind my CFP, means I'm registered, means I actually got educated, means I actually know what I'm talking about. That's what separates me from the most. You want the course? Money Vehicle is designed for you, Gab3J. Check it out, yourmoneyvehicle.com. Type in Cyber Monday for a coupon. You get 50% off. This all sounded like a foreign language to me, too. Even State Farm has IRAs. Mark Holbrook, excellent addition. Even State Farm. So they're everywhere. You can open an account. You just got to, now you know what it's called. Now you know who to ask. What brand of hair gel do you use? Oh, shit. Damn, I should know that. I'll look it up. Come back tomorrow. I'll give it to you tomorrow. That's funny, though. I use hair gel and so it doesn't move. I do my hair in the morning after my workout, and I tell it, I don't want you to move the rest of the day. Nicholas, what were some of your biggest mistakes, lessons during your financial life? So I've told you guys before, one of my biggest lessons was I spent my entire first paycheck. I bought an engagement ring. It's a cute story, but I money came in, money left. I didn't know what to do with the money, so I spent it. One of the other, lessons I came to understand was once I did start understanding money a little bit, I started to trade. I got in on it, started reading up on stocks, companies, and I made a little money. Probably the biggest lesson and mistake I made was I made money early on. Like it's not hard to make money. Over the last 6 months since the dip of the virus, people are like, oh man, I'm making a ton of money on Robinhood. Newsflash. Everything is making money right now. Not everything. That's an inaccurate statement. But a lot of things are making money right now. Oh, I guessed right on friggin' DocuSign. Kudos, bro. Like, that's not the message. The message is, can you make money over the next 10 years? Are you willing to make that bet? The answer is no. And how I know that is because everybody on Wall Street is also admitting it's very hard to beat the market. So one of the biggest mistakes I made was thinking I was smarter than other people. And the lesson is you don't have to be smarter. That's what so many people miss about this investment game is index funds. Jack Bogle, Vanguard created these things to help the individual investor like you and me. So that's what I want to teach. I want to make you confident in playing in that game. Chef Seth, got to get him with a go Coos. Yee. Where you at? I always got something cougarish next to me. Respect. When were you there, Chef? Mark Holbrook, did you study finance in college? Yes, I was an accounting major, so I was in the business school. Ironically, I was still financially illiterate. Personal finances. So that's what they never taught me. I could fill out a whole deck of, financial statements on companies, but nobody showed me personal finances. Dang, Oregon and Washington game just got canceled. That's a bummer. So what I do now, Mark, is I've created a course that's on college campuses and in high schools. It's a virtual class teaching people money, personal finance money. Is there value in buying Chinese stocks or European stocks? 100%. 100%. We love America. We need to bank on America. We need to bet on America. But you need to be diversified. And being diversified is not only what geographically, but it's also amongst asset classes. That's a topic for another day because there's small, mid, large companies, there's value, there's growth, there's international, there's emerging market. There's a lot of shit. That's why you buy index funds. That's why you dip your toe, start saying, I don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Buy them all. Buy it all. Then you can start to play. Then you can start to get a little more niched and go down from there. But begin by buying it all. That is what your lesson is going to be. So yes, buy Chinese stocks, buy European stocks, buy stocks everywhere in the world. That is the beauty. Would you recommend starting a 401k while still paying off college debt? So one, you have to work at a company to start a 401k. You can open an IRA. If you're asking if should you work, put money into your employer's 401k, number one, 100% get the free money match. The only thing I would pay off before money match, which I think you need to figure out your finances far better before you make this decision is credit card debt. If I'm paying credit card debt, I would pay that off before putting a dime into my 401k. After I'm credit card debt free, I would look at my 401k, go get that match. I would look at my student loans, my car loan, my other loans, and I would max out as much as I could of my future. Again, yesterday we talked about money buckets, so my future choice. Then I would start dipping into my past choices. Again, the opportunity cost, the decision here is, do I believe my investment will make me more than this interest I'm paying? If it's under 5%, I'm pretty comfortable and confident putting it into the future choice. If it's 8, 9, 10%, that's when you start targeting that before you start dipping into 401k. So get paid. How do you declare? That's a good question. Let me look up the answer to how you would show that you are getting an income. I think it's just a question. I don't think you need a W-2, but I'm not 100% positive on that for a minor. I think you can just submit, I made $1,000. And then if you ever get audited, but you will not get audited for $1,000. So let me come back tomorrow. Let me confirm. How do you prove cash payments? Because that would be the same for like a waiter. All right, so let me ask the question of the day, because I know two people earlier said they want to get paid. So would you recommend a 401k while still paying off college debt? Yes, we talked about that. How do you buy Chinese stocks, though, through an American ETF? So it wouldn't be an American ETF. It would be a foreign ETF. But again, there are global ETFs and indexes that buy everything in the world, VT being one of them. I have no problem recommending VT because it owns thousands of companies. Boom. I recently inherited my dad's house in Chicago suburbs. No mortgage. Is it better to rent or sell? Ooh, we don't have time to answer that one. I would gut check, say, if you don't need a big lump sum of money right now, keep renting it. Depends on the neighborhood, depends on if it needs expenses, needs a lot of things. You got to be able to cover the property taxes, the insurance. Even though you don't have a mortgage, you still have property taxes and insurance. So those are big payments. But at Chicago, I'm sure you could rent that out, keep the income instead of selling and getting out. But that depends on a lot of things. Let's approach that one another day. If I'm trying to get a job as a teenager right now, does my resume need to include my grades? It could include a certification in financial literacy, which our Money Vehicle course will offer you. So that's a good resume addition. Check that. But they will typically ask something about your grades. Absolutely. Because that is what they're going to be able to compare. That's also why once you're out of high school, they're going to ask for your credit score. It's just a general thing that they can compare. Ask your HR for verification, pay stubs. Okay, so I want to give you the 4 advantages of using a bank account right now, and then we're going to ask for the winner, and then we'll sign off. And I had a rookie to veteran lesson, but we're coming up on time. We had some great questions today, so I wanted to keep those rolling. So the 4 advantages of using your bank now that you're setting it up, you're building your strategy. Number 1 is that cash management system. Yesterday we talked about the money buckets. You had those 5 choices. You can automate all of those choices through a bank. Why it's your first teammate. So cash management system is going to be utilized through an electronic bank. So I can look at my past statements and I can see exactly where and how my money is going. Number 2, security. Up to $250,000 of your money in a bank account will be secured by the federal government. It's called the FDIC. If you work or if you're using a credit union, it's not the FDIC, it's the NCUA, but it's the same concept. I will caveat it with this. That is not investments. They do not insure investments. That is not cyber attacks. They do not insure identity theft. That is those bank runs we were talking about earlier. If the bank goes under, that is when that insurance comes in. Most banks do have cyber and fraud and those kinds of insurance, but that is separate. $250,000. Number 3, as we all know, a bank gives you liquidity. I can go to Detroit, Texas, California, and I can get my money out of a bank and use it. And this is a little caveat because it's a little less at the moment, but a bank does pay you interest. So you can find a high yield savings account, bankrate.com. We'll talk about that again tomorrow. You can go get an interest bearing account. It's not going to be 8-10%, but 2-3%. You can go get paid to have your money sitting in a bank account. If you're looking at buying something like a car or a house, I highly recommend a high yield savings account. I could even put my Corona cushion in a high yield savings account because that's money I'm not going to use, but I want very liquid and accessible. So, cash management system, security, liquidity, and interest. First person that can give me, actually, so the question of the day was, does a bank give out your deposits? Is that true or false? And then you write in the 2 advantages of your bank. That's going to be the questions of the day. True or false? Can a bank loan out your money? And what are 2 advantages of using a bank? QC, that's me, coming with a hot yes. QC _ that's me. Daniel Gonzalez official, cash management, security, liquidity, interest. Boom. Daniel Gonzalez, John Kim. You know you're my guy. You're just my guy. But Daniel Gonzalez official is going to be the winner of the day. JJ15 coming in good. Chris Caswell got it. But Daniel Gonzalez official got it faster. Daniel Gonzalez official. Chris Caswell, 3. You were right there. Appreciate you. Sloan, welcome to the club. Sloan, you get a free course because you asked a great question, and I like the fact that you're grinding and hustling. The loans and financial help, LMAO, I don't know. True loans and financial help, LMAO. Yes, liquidity, FDIC. Mark Hallbrook. See you, Mark Hallbrook. Good answers. Appreciate you. Daniel Gonzalez, 100. Get it. John Freeman, you late, bro. You late. But you're all right. Welcome in, Ryan Harris, 210. We'll catch you tomorrow. So tomorrow is Friday. We're going to go at the same bat time, same bat channel. Tomorrow, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. We're going to be diving into those 2 accounts. Who is your first teammate? We're going to answer more questions. Today and I get to go over the rookie to veteran principle of, are you playing checkers or chess? I was having dinner with my family. John Freeman, I'm just playing with you, bro. No worries. Appreciate y'all. Excellent questions. Come with more. Again, why I'm different than most people on here is I actually studied this stuff. I'm not slanging get rich quick stuff. I'm here to help you. I want you to understand. I want you to strategize, and I want you to be efficient with your money. Money Vehicle mission is to get you to use money. I need an advisor. I do not have clients, but I do have friends who are advisors. I am an educator. I do students. I do not do clients anymore. But I love that you're looking for an advisor. Keep the hunt out. Damn it. Where is he? Get out of here. Brett's still with us. Respect. That's an inside joke for those of you who were here yesterday. Appreciate y'all. See you mañana. Thank you.